Story 1. Smirnoff Vanilla Vodka. I drank the entire bottle and felt extremely unwell. I experienced severe symptoms of alcohol poisoning and should have gone to the emergency room, but I was afraid of getting into trouble, so I chose to endure a slow and painful recovery instead. However, I survived. Story 2. Fireball. I was fully convinced I was Eve because I vomited my entire salad all over myself and had lettuce covering my private parts. Never again. Story 3. Soju is a Korean alcoholic beverage that may initially seem mild. However, it can quickly lead to excessive intoxication. I experienced a hangover that lasted for 2.5 days, and I was very ill when I got home. I stumbled up the stairs and nearly fell the wrong way, which could have resulted in a serious accident. Story 4. Peppermint schnapps. We were 17, and it was the only thing we could obtain. I got very sick. The kicker was that for about 3 months, I had to use cinnamon toothpaste because anytime mint touched my tongue, I almost vomited. Story 5. Rum and Coke used to be my favorite drink at the bar, but after having too many one night, I lost interest in it. Story 6. The first time I ever drank was also the first time I ever got drunk, followed by my first hangover. Overall, it was a remarkably effective lesson about overindulgence. It was Jameson whiskey. It's not so much that I swore I'd never drink it again. I like the taste, and people who enjoy whiskey seem to have a lot of fun with it. But my body certainly swore it would never drink it again. Years later, I still start getting phantom hangovers just from the smell. Story 7. Tequila, for sure. I have certainly been more intoxicated on other types of alcohol, but that was the worst experience I have ever had. It was just a complete mess. Story 8. The gin that tastes like Christmas trees is Smirnoff Ice Original. The chocolate milk drink I remember is called a mudslide, which I discovered around the time I first tried alcohol. Story 9. Red wine. I was 17 at boarding school. I had a big netball tournament the next day and had to be dragged onto the bus with vomit in my hair. Story 10. Cheap wine, rum, vodka, and gin. I vowed never to drink them again at least half a dozen times each until I eventually stopped drinking altogether. Story 11. Scotch. It doesn't matter if it's top shelf, middle of the road, or low quality. Any and all of it. Story 12. Las Vegas, 1976. 16 years old, sitting at the lobby bar of the Sands Hotel. I drank way too many vodka tonics. The next morning was a mixture of a hangover and still being drunk. Never again. Story 13. Captain Morgan. I got intoxicated off it during my freshman year of college. I sold the rest of the bottle to a friend for $10 because I no longer wanted the smell in my room. 20 years later, I still can't look at it without feeling sick. Story 14. Southern Comfort and hot drinks. That's what I had access to as a teenager. The smell of both makes me feel nauseous. Story 15. Everclear. I haven't touched it since. I drank a strange, seemingly homemade drink called Mama Juana in the Dominican Republic once, and interesting things happened. I would do that again. Story 16. Warka Strong Apple Wine contains 14% alcohol and is sold in 500 milliliters bottles. The label states, "No one can finish 3. This is a remarkably accurate statement. By the end of the second bottle, you may find yourself unconscious, regretting your choices. It also left me with a lasting aversion to anything apple-flavored. Story 17. Jameson Ginger Ale. I decided a cup of coffee after 3 of these would be a good idea. I ended up getting stuck in a restaurant bathroom and vomiting outside the car window. They are too easy to drink, and they were doubles. Story 18. When I was a young airman in the Air Force, I flew a mission to Alaska and came back with a bottle of Yukon Jack. My friend and I drank the entire bottle while playing on his Super Nintendo. We were not too bad since we were sitting down the whole time. We decided to get something to eat at the chow hall, but once we stood up, it hit us. We were so intoxicated that we could barely stand, and both of us ended up violently nauseous, spending the next 2 hours vomiting into his toilet and sink. Ever since then, even the smell of it makes me gag. Story 19. A drink called a hairy alligator consisted of a shot of Bacardi 151, a shot of tequila, a shot of Everclear, and a quarter of lime served over ice, then lit on fire and taken as a shot. Consuming 5 of those in about 10 minutes, followed by beer and stumbling home, was quite an experience. The 1980s were fun, although the next morning was not. Story 20. I drank too much gin as a teenager, got sick, and blacked out while rolling around in the sand. The smell of gin has made me feel nauseous ever since. Story 21. Just over half a bottle of absinthe gave me 3 days of alcohol poisoning. Now I can barely think about the smell. Story 22. Every liquor really has the taste of apple. But there I sat and drank apple-flavored vodka, a sour liqueur with the flavor of healthy, sweet apples. With an alcohol content of 15%, I had to drink a lot before I felt any effects. It wasn't until I stood up quickly that I became sick, and it burned my throat. My hangover also tasted like apple for several days. So, no thank you, never again. Story 23. We drank cheap vodka as kids and passed out from alcohol poisoning. They hid the bottle and showed us a video of the aftermath. We honestly should have been taken to the hospital. We thought we got away with it, but when we woke up, the jug was on the kitchen table. Story 24. Smirnoff Raspberry Twist Vodka. I know it doesn't exist anymore, but the idea of it makes me feel nauseous. Story 25. I used to drink vodka by the bottle in high school, and I looked about 30 years old when I was 14. I would mix 1/3 vodka, 1/3 orange juice, and 1/3 Mountain Dew in a large fast food plastic beverage cup. Now the thought of vodka makes me shudder. Story 26. Bacardi. I have never experienced such a terrible hangover as I did after overindulging. Lesson learned. I'm not invincible. Story 27. In college, we organized a taste test to find the best cheap beer. We bought a 6-pack of every beer under $1.99 that we could find. We had a party and tried flights of 4-ounce glasses. I sampled 14 different brands of beer. I woke up on my dorm room floor, having not made it to bed, and couldn't stand the smell of opened beer for 6 months. Story 28. 1. Tequila. 2. The drink my friend made one night and named an ecto cooler. We have never replicated it. The evening took a turn, and no one has a clear memory of that night. Story 29. I have been down that path a few times. It just turned me into a solitary drinker. I don't mix well with others and their problems that they won't fix. I can't fix my problems, and they simply won't fix theirs. Story 30. A 40-ounce bottle of Steel Reserve. Back when I was barely old enough to buy my own. I felt like I had been poisoned the next day. No other beer ever made me feel like that. I learned my lesson and never touched malt liquor again. Story 31. Jello shots. I was a young and naive kid. I remember taking an excessive amount, like 13 to 15, while also drinking beer at a college party. I kept taking them because I didn't feel anything. Eventually, I made it back to the dorms and vomited for a few hours. Never again. Story 32. A half-gallon of mezcal in a plastic jug for $1.89 on a beach in Mexico 25 years ago. I am still unwell today. Story 33. A case of beer, a handle of Everclear, and 2 pitchers of lemonade and iced tea each. It tastes so deceptively good that, by your 3rd drink, you realize how strong it is when you start seeing double, and it's already too late. Story 34. There have been a few, but the first that comes to mind is peppermint schnapps. My friend and I decided to each get a 5th because, 110-pound, 14-year-olds need that much. Then we proceeded to mix it with chocolate milk. When the police dropped me off at my mother's doorstep later that night, I was covered in my own filth and so sick that I probably needed to go to the hospital. To this day, the very thought of combining mint and chocolate together makes me retch, and I'm 52 years old. Story 35. Vodka and orange juice. I couldn't have either for years. Even now, I drink orange juice and think I smell vodka in it, which makes me feel nauseous. Story 36. Sambuca. I had a big night with some friends after they had their first child, and the Sambuca shots came out toward the end of the night. The vomiting I experienced from the hangover the next day tasted like licorice, and now I can't eat that anymore. so it ruined both the drink and licorice for me in one go. Story 37. White Bacardi and Kettle One. Not together. Separate ruined evenings. To be fair, I was in high school at the time. Story 38. My friends and I took a bottle of someone's parents' caramel Smirnoff. That is not something you drink straight. Story 39. During our college graduation party, I drank half of a 750 milliliter bottle of Elijah Craig whiskey, which is about 47% alcohol. I ended up blacked out in a hospital. It was not fun. I haven't had a sip of alcohol in the last 10 years. Story 40. I had a challenging experience with pastis as a teenager, but I love it now. The anise-flavored drinks of Mediterranean Europe are bold and captivating. They become cloudy when mixed with water or ice, which is how they should be served. The French version is excellent, and I also enjoy raki and its similar drinks. Took me 20 years to overcome my initial experience, but I did. Story 41. Remy Martin and Pink Whitney. I was convinced my vomit burst my ex's pipes and caused water to leak everywhere, including the walls. It wasn't due to that. It was because Texas experienced a week of snow a couple of years ago, and by pure chance, all the pipes froze and burst. I had a mental breakdown trying to unclog the pipe with a plastic fork, which got stuck. I then continued to try with a metal fork, which also got stuck. Story 42. I had 2 shots of Jägermeister liqueur. It was the most disgusting taste ever, and I literally became cross-eyed and saw stars not long after. Story 43. Every weekend, I told the cab driver to stop on the Francis Scott Key Bridge so I could vomit tequila. That was 26 years ago. I made a mistake once during the blackout of 2003. I don't remember that night. Story 44. Beatbox. This is the worst hangover I have ever experienced in my life. Maybe it was because I mixed it with vodka, but I'm sure it was the sugar in the beatbox that affected me so badly. Story 45. Vodka. Anything else and I am a happy drunk. Something about cheap vodka turns me into a violent person. Story 46. Slow gin. I was so sick that I felt like I was dying and was afraid I wouldn't make it through high school. 60 years later, I can't look at it in a liquor store without gagging. Story 47. Orange-flavored vodka. I believe it was Burnett's. I blacked out after drinking it. I have never had another bottle since. Story 48. Peach schnapps for fuzzy navels made me very sick. I feel nauseous to this day when I think about the taste. It has been 33 years since it happened. Story 49. I have slowly decided that there are very few alcoholic drinks I enjoy the taste of, and I question why I would spend money on something that tastes unpleasant. Additionally, I do not like the feeling of being buzzed or drunk. I have tried it and do not like it. Story 50. Aftershock. Never again. 25 years ago, I woke up with my head stuck to the floor. Vomit isn't a great adhesive, but it will do the trick. Story 51. Which time? It generally was whatever happened to be on sale that week, typically a New Hampshire vodka or local rum. Story 52. My friend brought me a bottle of loopy vodka that tasted like Fruit Loops. It was very easy to drink. I was an alcoholic at the time, took one sip and said aloud, "Oh, this isn't good." I quit drinking a year later. Loopy was my downfall. It marked the beginning of the end. Story 53. I thought Four Roses was bad until I made the mistake of drinking Georgia Moon corn whiskey, guaranteed not to be aged over 30 days. It was like drinking liquid fire. Never again. Story 54. I believe I gave myself alcohol and cinnamon poisoning. I was sick for 3 days and I'm pretty sure I ruined cinnamon for the rest of my life. Story 55. If you know, it no longer exists. It was so dangerous for reasons beyond its strength. I still have half a bottle somewhere. Story 56. It was the last day of freshman year in high school. My friend brought a bottle to school, and we drank it on the way home. It was 90 degrees outside, and I passed out in the sun and threw up. It was not a pretty sight. Story 57. A mixture of rum and root beer. I cannot smell root beer without feeling nauseous. I have never touched either again. Story 58. Not me, but my father, and it's all alcohol except for beer. My dad and I got drunk once. He became irritable and I decided to go to sleep. I woke up at 4 and found him throwing all of my mom's belongings in the trash. I spent the next 2 hours digging her salvageable items out of the trash. Story 59. Every time I have smoked Sambuca vapor, I promise not to do it again. Until the Lamborghini shots come out again. Story 60. That cheap stuff Jose Cuervo tequila, I think. I don't really remember the party with my friends. I drank the whole bottle and blacked out. Story 61. Tequila. Around 1991, when I was 16, my parents went away for the weekend and left me home alone. I had only ever had beer at that point, but I drank an entire clay tiki head cup, about 14 ounces, filled with tequila straight up in a couple of minutes. I lost all conscious thought within minutes and have no memories until waking up the next afternoon with a splitting headache, covered in vomit. I had trashed my room and made all kinds of bizarre drawings, notes, and things I have no recollection of. I have drank tequila since then, but I have never had that much or wanted to get excessively drunk again. Story 62. In high school, we drank way too much Seagram 7. In college, we had Cisco once. Both experiences were the same in that we vowed to never do it again. Story 63. Bacardi 151 was mixed with 7-Up. Then I started drinking it straight and later woke up in the hospital. Story 64. Jack Daniel's Honey. On a Saturday evening in 2016, an ABC party was about to get started. After some warm-up games of beer pong, I grew bored of winning, so I drank from all 9 of my cups, each containing triple shots. I remember walking to meet my date and then blacked out. The next morning, I woke up feeling terrible. I found 50 business cards in my wallet. Half of my belongings were missing, and there was writing all over my face. I had my hangover moment trying to piece everything together. It was not pretty when I figured it out. Story 65. Jim Beam. During a camping trip, a friend brought a bottle of it. We started passing it back and forth, and the next thing I know, I am throwing up. Never again. Story 66. Bourbon. I couldn't even smell it without feeling nauseated from 1985 to 2012. A friend introduced me to good bourbon in 2012, and since then, I have loved it. Story 67. First, 99 apples, then Fireball, then tequila. I can finally drink tequila again, but not much. I have a strong dislike for Fireball. I hope Fireball has to deal with discomfort every night for the rest of its existence. Story 68. Canadian Club Maple Whiskey was tasted at the distillery, where I explored areas that were off-limits to the public. I could have been arrested. I was 30 years old, and it was a chaotic night. I ended up being locked out of my home as well. Story 69. Peach Schnapps. Freshman year in college. I was not a drinker until college and finished a bottle by myself. I felt very sick for the next 2 days. No more schnapps for me. Story 70. Gold 4 Loco. I drank that all through high school. I have good memories with that, but you can only have so much of it. Story 71. Any answer that isn't mezcal hasn't found true hangover fuel. The only hangover worse than mezcal is oddly red wine. Story 72. Jack Daniel's. I'll have a sip and instantly gag. It has a disgusting aftertaste even when mixed. I regularly enjoy a variety of bourbon, Scotch, and tin cup mountain whiskey neat with no issues. Jack Daniel's never made it back into my rotation after it caused me to pass out on the couch face up. Fortunately, I was with people or it could have been dangerous. Besides my bad experience, I was never a fan of the peaty aftertaste, which is its signature flavor. Story 73. Some brown liquor, I think whiskey. The next day, my friend said I was so much fun right before I threw up. Story 74. Cheap tequila. A group of us did our first 2 airborne jumps in the army, bought Pepe Lopez tequila, got drunk, and then the next day ran 4 miles and jumped again. We all got sick many times and cannot even smell the stuff without gagging. Story 75. Whiskey doesn't matter what kind it is, whether Jack, Jim, or Crown. I just can't stand it. The smell makes me want to vomit. Crown and Coke used to be my drink, but now it's Captain and Coke. Story 76. Long Island iced tea the first time I had it. It took me by surprise. It was the first and only time I had to lean on someone while walking back to the apartment of the friend I was with. It was also the first and only time I woke up in a puddle of my own vomit in the bathroom. I cleaned up after myself, but my friend left me alone to pursue someone, so it would have served him right if I hadn't. Despite swearing it off, it became my drink for a while, but I always limited myself to a couple, maybe 3 if it was over a long period. Story 77. Rum of any variety. Halloween circa 1993. In college, we pre-partied with a bottle of Southern Comfort before heading to Party 1, where we drank more Southern Comfort and beer. Party 2, it was more beer, and the parties continued with even more beer. By the last party, we switched to rum because beer no longer sounded good, and there was nothing else to drink. Did I throw up? No, but I wish I had. It probably would have helped. I walked back to the apartment with a roommate, and we found another roommate, who had left for an earlier party, trying and failing to unlock the door. I have no idea how long he had been trying, but he insisted he walked in a straight line from the last party back to the apartment. That was physically impossible because there weren't any parties on our street. I have had bad hangovers ever since then, really bad ones. But I still hate rum to this day, almost 32 years later, all because of that night. Story 78. Ocean City, New Jersey, hosted a boat parade that I can't quite remember the name of. After enjoying some gin, I almost stumbled to the edge and fell into the bay. The next day, I worked in fast food and nearly collapsed face first onto the hot grill. Never again. Story 79. I was down in Cocoa Beach for my first vacation as a teenager without my parents. They were selling Bacardi 151 for $1 a bottle on the beach. Being almost broke, I bought one and consumed almost the entire bottle while watching everyone streak through the Holiday Inn and push the lifeguard stands into the ocean. At some point, I passed out and my brother found me and somehow carried me back to the hotel, putting me in the bathtub because he didn't want me to be sick all over the beds. A housekeeper found me the next day and thought I was dead in the tub. I wished I was at that time as the sunlight hurt. I spent the next 3 days in the hotel room trying to recover. To this day, I cannot drink rum. Story 80. Captain Morgan. I drank a fifth with my college roommate, then went to the free Wednesday night movie. I haven't touched it since. Story 81. I feel like this question gets asked every week, presumably by some chatbot, and receives the same answers every time, also presumably by chatbots. What's the point anymore? Story 82. Smirnoff Peppermint Vodka. I had such a bad experience with it on New Year's that I can't even get near vodka anymore. Story 83. My friends and I enjoyed some piña coladas made with coconut rum. Later, they decided to buy a bottle of coconut rum and drink it straight. By the end of the night, they were both vomiting and crying. Story 84. I never drank that much. Sure, on special occasions I did. If I was at a party, I would only drink no more than 4, usually just 1 or 2. The reason I stopped was that I drove after drinking. It was less than a mile, and nothing happened, but I felt so guilty that I told myself I wouldn't drink again. Story 85. I had too much cake-flavored vodka the second time I ever drank, and it was horrendous the next day. I still can't smell cake-scented things without thinking about it. Story 86. There are 2 types. Rum, which is disgustingly sweet, and wine, to which I am allergic due to tannins. So I stay away from both, and I have been clean for 2 to 4 years now. Story 87. Moonshine. At 15 years old, I ended up at a party with mainly people in their 20s. I was encouraged to take 4 shots of moonshine. I have not been tempted to touch it since. Tequila, on the other hand. Story 88. Black Velvet. 3 of us in college drank an entire half-gallon in one night. That was over a decade ago. I am now allergic to alcohol. I have not consumed a single drop of alcohol in over 13 years. Story 89. There's nothing particularly special about any type of alcohol as long as you pay attention to portion sizes. Alcohol by volume, timing, and ensure you are adequately hydrated and have eaten properly. Congeners can exacerbate your hangover, and high sugar content can lead to stomach discomfort, but they will not make you drunker or change your behavior while drinking. Ultimately, alcohol is alcohol and different spirits contain varying amounts, but these are measured and regulated. The allure of any restricted beverage is purely psychosomatic. Certain scents can certainly trigger a gag reflex or an unpleasant feeling, which is true. I have never been so ill from alcohol that I encountered a drink or smell I could never experience again. However, my wife has gone nearly a decade without touching anything peach-flavored after she, as a newly turned 21-year-old, tried to keep pace with two stocky friends from central Wisconsin, myself included, on Irish car bombs during St. Patrick's Day, finishing her night with Sprite mixed with peach schnapps. We consumed significantly more than she did, but were up bright and early at 7 a.m., feeling energetic and ready for breakfast, while she was still feeling woozy. The scent of peach-OS candy still unsettles her. Story 90. My friend's dad is a dentist and has medicinal ethanol at home, which we drank a couple of times. We ended up sending nudes to someone we thought was gay, but he turned out to be a pedophile, and at 18 years old, we looked very young. He was kind of grooming us, but we were technically adults. His case became a significant issue in Canada, and our photos are likely part of some investigation. We also drank tequila for typical reasons. Additionally, we had a really memorable New Year's Eve drinking disinfectant while with his grandma, who had dementia. I will not do that again. It ended with my friend's girlfriend's dad giving us a couple of $200 bottles of wine to enjoy for the rest of the evening and jokingly suggesting we could pay him with sex in the wine cellar. I pulled down my pants and told him to go ahead. Story 91. Bacardi Breezer Blue Typhoon. I am not sure if they still make it, but the sugar content was so high that it would give me the worst stomach ache. Story 92. Whiskey No Comment. Sherlock. 40 years ago and I can't even sniff it, let alone taste it. That was a bad New Year's Eve. Story 93. It was my first time drinking wine, and my ex didn't tell me how much I needed to drink to get drunk. I was drinking so he could practice his sobriety test. I finished the whole bottle in 5 minutes and felt fine until I tried to walk and ended up falling over. He had to carry me to bed. Story 94. I drank this and I genuinely woke up in a ditch, forgetting where I was or what time it was. Story 95. Tequila Rose, when thrown over a balcony onto the pine trees, resembles Pepto-Bismol and reminds you of how sick it made you. Constantly, every day on the pine needles. It doesn't go away no matter how much it rains. Story 96. I don't know the name. I only know the Kremlin was on the bottle. I woke up with my head in a toilet, one friend in a puddle of his own making on the bed, another in a different kind of puddle on the floor. Story 97. Jack and Dr. Pepper. I can smell Jack and immediately feel nauseous. I haven't touched Dr. Pepper in over 20 years. Story 98. Vodka in any form or flavor was the main event at a party my roommates and I hosted. We started playing beer pong but ran out of beer and mixers, so we began taking pulls from the vodka bottle. With 6 of us, we consumed 3 1.75-liter bottles of various flavors. This was after having already enjoyed a significant amount of Captain Morgan. Before bed, I allowed my friend to convince me to take 3 more shots of 100-proof vodka. I have no idea why I agreed to that. It resulted in the worst hangover I've ever experienced. Nowadays, I feel skeptical about sipping a vodka drink, having been over a decade since that incident. Story 99. Fireball made the mistake of trying to keep up with this cute blonde girl. Turned out she was an alcoholic. Story 100. Rum made me angry and filled me with violent urges. I had a bad night in 1993 and swore I would never take a sip of it again. It has been 32 years, and I still haven't. Story 101. To this day, I cannot even smell an Applidini without gagging a little. It is probably for the best, so thank you, St. Patrick's Day 2007. Story 102. About 6 years ago, while I was in college, my boyfriend and I went to a club in my college town where Vegas bombs were being served for $2. I believe we each had at least 5 shots, in addition to the other alcoholic drinks we consumed that night. Long story short, when we got home, we spent the night alternating between the shower and the toilet until at least 4 in the morning. I woke up that morning on my bedroom floor with no clothes, using a bath towel as a pillow, while my boyfriend was passed out on the bathroom floor next to a toilet bowl full of our regrettable decisions. Now, whenever someone orders me a Vegas bomb, I recoil, and the best I can do is sip it. Story 103, Jägermeister. I used to drink it a lot until I had a 70 cl bottle of it and some beers at a party. After that, I just couldn't drink it anymore. It's been 15 years since, and I think maybe I had a shot of Jägermeister 2 or 3 times since. I still dislike it. Story 104. When I was 18, I got very drunk from vodka mixed with Diet Cola. I'm now 35 and haven't been able to touch that combination since. Story 105. Jim Beam didn't drink whiskey for about a decade. Then I discovered bourbon, and while I still wouldn't drink Basic Jim again, a lot of their other brands are now some of my favorites. In fact, Old Tub may be one of the best values in liquor. Story 106. Bacardi, I just remember drinking 2 glasses. No, I didn't mix. I thought it would be just like vodka. It hit me like a truck, and I woke up the next day on the floor with vomit in my hair. Story 107, Wild Turkey. I'm a whiskey drinker, and I can handle my alcohol well. I don't know if it's something in the way they distill it or what, but I felt miserable and sick each time I tried it. Never again. Story 108, Absinthe. Maybe the drink isn't as bad as that cube of fossilized sugar. I forget what it is that it comes with. I have to clench my teeth just thinking about it. Story 109. Slivovitz made in a Bosnian man's garage taught me a valuable lesson. Do not drink beverages produced in someone's garage. Story 110. Bacardi White Rum was the first time I ever had it when I was about 16, and it went down smoother than anything I had ever experienced before. I haven't had it since I woke up with vomit on myself. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.